Thanks everybody for coming. This presentation is called Who Needs Don Draper? The Real Mad Men Were Much More Interesting. So let me get a show of hands to begin. How many people consider themselves die-hard Mad Men fans? I mean, the real enchilada. Okay, I got 3 or 4. How many of you are kind of, I watch it sometimes kind of thing, but I really like it? Okay, great. Well, let me say first off, to begin everything, that my presentation today is not meant to knock Mad Men, the show, or Don Draper, the character, per se. I love the show as much as you do. I've got all the seasons on DVD, and I'm such a nerd that I watch it in reruns, even though I have them on DVD. I'll watch it if it's on AMC. And I think you'll agree that it's the only show, Mad Men is the only show in advertising history, TV history, that has gotten advertising even remotely correct. I mean, it's really the only one that accurately portrays what it's like to actually work within an advertising agency. And we deserve it, don't you think? I mean, we've had, some of you younger people won't know these references, but some of our older ones, we've had to survive 60 years of idiotic portrayals of advertising people like Darren Stevens on Bewitched, Angela Bauer on Who's the Boss, and the Bauer Agency, and heaven help us all, Jesse and Joey from Full House. I don't even remember what their agency was called, but they had their own little ad agency. So after 60 years of that, Mad Men is a breath of fresh air. But let me say this, I have a couple of beefs with the show. The first one is that if you watch Mad Men carefully, and I do, it's really only 30% about advertising. The majority of it, the rest of it, is a melodrama about who Don Draper is sleeping with, the sexual antics of his daughter, the fact that Peggy Olson had a baby out of wedlock, the secretly gay account executive, and on and on and on. And in other words, the makers of the show didn't think that advertising was interesting in and of itself to base the whole show on. They had to tart everything up with sex, which is really sad because the actual people that these characters are based on are nothing like this, and they're interesting in and of themselves simply because of the work that they did. None of them ever stole the identity of a dead soldier. None of them were raised in a whorehouse, and none of them had emotional breakdowns in front of clients. They were pretty ordinary people who were interesting because of their obsession with great work. We think that's only a 2014 thing. No. It was started in a period called the Creative Revolution of the 1960s. And it's interesting, even though most advertising people I know love Mad Men, and the presentation I made the other day was filled with Mad Men fans, I've done some research, and the people that these characters are based on that actually lived through this and did the work in this era, they despise the show. They hate it. I want to show you a quote from Paula Green, who most people agree is the character that is the woman that the Peggy Olson character was based on. Brilliant copywriter. She wrote the Avis campaign, the Levi's bread campaign, lots of other things you'd know. The Avis campaign is her most notable. And she was just inducted into the Advertising Hall of Fame last year, and they asked her in her interview if Mad Men was, she was a copywriter at Dole Dane Bernbach, which I'll be talking a lot about in the next couple minutes. They asked her if Mad Men was accurate, and here's what she said. Oh, bull, it's just a soap. The agency I worked for, none of that went on. If they did it on their own time. People didn't sit around drinking in their offices. I have another quote from you from George Lois. Anybody know who George Lois is? He's whom, and I saw an interview with Matthew Weiner, who's the creator of the show, and everyone wants to know who Don Draper is based on. And he would never do it. And I heard an interview with him where he finally admitted George Lois is mainly the guy who Don Draper is based on. And but George Lois doesn't necessarily, he's still alive, by the way. He doesn't like this at all. Here's a quote, we're going to talk about George Lois in depth here, and I got to warn you that there's an F-bomb coming in his quote, because that's the kind of guy George Lois is. But he was asked about this, and this is a quote that he just gave in a Playboy magazine interview. The more I think and write about Mad Men, the more I take the show as a personal insult. So F you, Mad Men, you phony, gray flannel suit, male chauvinist, no talent, wasp, red-shirted, white-shirted, racist, anti-Semitic Republican SOBs, unquote. I told you the real people were more interesting. So what I'd like to do in the next 30 minutes is actually talk to you about the real madmen and madwomen. They're much more interesting. And specifically, I'd like to talk to you about 4 people. Bill Bernbach, who passed away in 1982. Phyllis Robinson, who passed away in 2010. George Lois, who is still alive and kicking and a pain in everyone's rump. And Mary Wells, who's one of my favorites. She's probably the most celebrated and the most successful she made more money than anyone on Madison Avenue. And her life is probably the one that's closest to a Mad Men episode. We'll talk about her in just a bit. I want to start at the very top. Some of you who know me well know that I idolize this guy, Bill Bernbach. None of us would be here today, and you may disagree, and none of us would be doing the work that we're doing today, and there would be no Mad Men show without Bill Bernbach. In my opinion, he was the most important figure in advertising history. He was the founder and creative director of Doyle Lane Bernbach. Again, in my opinion, the greatest advertising agency that has ever been. It was founded in 1949 by him, Jim Doyle, and Max Dane, and it was founded in New York. It still exists today. It's called DDB Worldwide, but it's just a shadow of what it was when he ran it. More than anyone else, Bill Bernbach was the person responsible for advertising's creative revolution. His influence really cannot be overestimated. Before the creative revolution, and we're talking, creative revolution started really in the late 50s, mid 50s, because Doyle Lane Bernbach was started in 1949. Before that time, advertising, almost all advertising, was awful. I mean, we're talking ridiculous illustrations of happy families, stupid mascots, puerile, repetitive copy, and irritating jingles. I'll give you an example. Here's what an auto ad looked like from the period before the creative revolution, before Bill Bernbach. Now, I don't quite understand what's going on here. I don't know what the building means, and there's only a little bit of copy, and bold Pontiac. I don't know what bold Pontiac means. I don't know why I'd want a bold car, but the little copy above it says, "A bold new car for a bold new generation." I know absolutely zip about what this car does. I can see what it looks like. I don't know what kind of gas mileage. I don't know if it runs well. I don't know anything. I don't know about the interior. I don't know anything about it. So before Bill Bernbach, this is what car advertising looked like. After Bill Bernbach, this is what car advertising looked like. It also has only a few lines of, or a few words of copy, or buy a Volkswagen. I know instantly in the first 3 seconds exactly what I'm going to get with a Volkswagen. It gets great gas mileage. By the way, this is revolutionary. That's why they call it the creative revolution. I mean, look at this and compare it to this. This, by the way, was the actual art director's sketch that they used to show this to the client. And Bill Bernbach thought it was so cool that he insisted that they use it as the visual. The art director wanted to take a photo, and Bernbach said, no, this is it. This is perfect. And his biggest contribution to what we do today is the marrying of copy and art, copy and graphic. They work together. You really don't need any other copy here. You know exactly what the benefit is by a short headline and a graphic. And that's really what he brought to the process that we have today. Bill Bernbach started the creative revolution with this ad that he wrote for his new agency. And I'd like to pass it out to you because I'd love to have you keep it, because, and I'm going to read it out loud because it deserves to be read out loud. And you'll understand what I'm talking about. I keep saying this term, creative revolution, over and over again. I want to read this to you, and it deserves to be read out loud. Headline, do this or die. Is this ad some kind of trick? No, but it could have been. At exactly that point rests a do or die decision for American business. We in advertising, together with our clients, have all the power and skill to trick people, or so we think, but we're wrong. We can't fool any of the people any of the time. There is indeed a 12-year-old mentality in this country. Every 6-year-old has one. We are a nation of smart people, and most smart people ignore most advertising because most advertising ignores smart people. Instead, we talk to each other. We debate endlessly about the medium and the message. Nonsense. In advertising, the message itself is the message. A blank page and a blank television screen are one and the same. And above all, the messages we put on those pages and on those television screens must be the truth. For if we play tricks with the truth, we die. Now, the other side of the coin. Telling the truth about a product demands a product that's worth telling the truth about. Sadly, so many products aren't. So many products don't do anything better or anything different. So many don't work quite right, or don't last, or simply don't matter. If we also play this trick, we also die. Because advertising only helps a bad product fail faster. No donkey chases the carrot forever. He catches on and quits. That's the lesson to remember. Unless we do, we die. Unless we change, the tidal wave of consumer indifference will wallop into the mountain of advertising and manufacturing drivel. That day we die. We'll die in our marketplace, on our shelves, in our gleaming packages of empty promises. Not with a bang, not with a whimper, but by our own skilled hands. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was a business owner in the period, I think I'd want this guy writing my ads. I don't think I've read better copy. Have you? I mean, talk about this is the first shot in the creative revolution. No other agency wrote ads like this for themselves. This is still as vibrant and lively as it is today. I mean, it still packs the same wallop. So when he started his agency, this is what came out. Bernbach assembled a group of copywriters and art directors who hated crappy advertising as much as he did. He invented the copywriter, art director, creative team. That's the basis of everything we do today. Every agency has the copywriter and art director work together. That's not the way it was. Before DDB, before Bill Bernbach, the AE would throw the job jacket on the desk of the copywriter, who would kind of drowsily write it and then literally put it under the door of the art director. There was no collaboration at all, and the art director was supposed to make eye candy, make it pretty. That's why you had bold Pontiac. I mean, that's why there were really no great ideas. But Bill Bernbach put a stop to that. In his agency, he put the art director in the office of the copywriter and had them come up with the concept together. That's why all their work, well, that's why the visuals and the copy work so fabulous for all their stuff, because it was the art director and the copywriter together responsible for the idea. As I said, when this happened, the headline and the graphic began to work together for the first time, and it resulted in incredible work. Now, I'm going to show you some of this work in a minute. Before I do, I want to talk to you a little bit about Bill Bernbach himself.